Good evening. Welcome to the March 27th meeting of the Minnetonka Planning Commission. The Commission generally meets twice a month, always on a Thursday. The schedule and tentative meeting agendas can be obtained by calling the Planning Division or by checking the city website at minnetonkamn.gov. The Commission holds public hearings on land use applications. For all applications, the city notifies property owners within at least 400 feet of the site and posts plans and information on the website. For some applications, the city also puts signs on the properties and puts notices in the Sun Sailor. From a process standpoint, the Commission makes recommendations to the City Council on rezonings, subdivisions, conditional use permits, and amendments to the city's comprehensive guide plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. We also make final decisions on site plans, signage requests, variance requests, and expansion permits, unless they are part of an application that must be heard by the City Council. In that case, we make a recommendation and the Council makes the decision. Anyone aggrieved by a final Planning Commission decision may appeal the decision to the City Council by writing to the staff within 10 days of this meeting. From a broader standpoint, the city's comprehensive guide plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations are the city's best efforts to codify a balance between individual rights and community responsibilities. Individual rights are easy to understand. Community responsibilities are more subtle. But the idea is that we, as members of the community, agree to limit our individual rights for the common good of the group. The Planning Division, the Planning Commission, and the City Council are charged with managing this sometimes difficult balancing act. We ask that you keep this broader perspective in mind as we review tonight's applications. Again, welcome. Staff, please call roll.
Banks.
Here.
Brink.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Minion.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Chair Maxwell.
Here. We have 7 seated here tonight. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Staff, are there any changes?
There are no changes this evening.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second.
Motion Banks.
Motion Banks.
Second
Second
Hanson.
Hanson. Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes of the... Oh, yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes of the March 7th meeting. Commissioners, any changes? No? All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion Waterman,
I'll second.
second Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is report from the staff.
Chair Maxwell, Commissioners, just one council meeting to report on since your last meeting. That was on the 17th of March, and there was just one Planning Commission item on that meeting, which was the Southwest Eye Care, the eye clinic at Ridge Square North, that was approved on the consent agenda as it was recommended by the Planning Commission. Our next meeting will be Thursday, April 10th. Between then and now, Ms. Wishnak and I will be attending the National Planning Conference next week, so hopefully come back with some new and interesting ideas.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Next is item 6, report from planning commissioners. Anything to report, Commission? No, I don't see any. All right, we're moving right along. Item 7, consent agenda. Excuse me. The city staff places items considered routine on the consent agenda. No staff or applicant presentations will be made. The commission will hold one public hearing and approve all items on the consent agenda with one motion, subject to the staff recommendation of approval. Before voting on the consent agenda, I'll open the public hearing, announce each item, and ask if anyone wishes to have a separate discussion or vote on that item. If so, the commission will then remove that from the consent agenda and hold a separate hearing on it after the voting for the remaining items. Today there's only one item, so we'll just vote on that one. The first item is item 7A, a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 5835 Lewis Avenue. Does any commissioner wish to remove this item, or any member from the audience?
Chair, may I ask a question of the city?
Yes, you may ask a question of the city staff.
No, good.
Yes.
Thank you. Looked pretty straightforward. I'm a little bit thrown by a letter that somebody had written. I'm looking if you can kind of define some of the things that were addressed in that letter, particularly if this were to pass. Are we allowing any changes in the city building code, any changes to, say, expanding in height? I think they talked about obstructions of views, things like that. Could you just kind of expand a little bit on what we're allowing or we're permitting if we were to pass this? Are we allowing to go outside of any of the current codes or change in that way? Thank you.
Chair and Commissioner Minion, this proposal actually meets all city ordinances. Again, there's a two-story structure there now. Essentially what's happening is the shape of that second story is changing and will be used for different purposes. The ordinance specifically says that these types of detached accessory dwelling units doesn't say they can only be one story. It says they can't be taller than the home. So this would be only 16.5 feet in height by city code definition, much shorter than a house that could be built on the site. So long answer to say no, the city is not going outside any of the rules that it's established for itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I do not believe that involves removing this from the consent agenda, so thanks for providing that quick answer. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Chair Maxwell, I would suggest you open the public hearing and then close
Sure.
the public hearing. Thank you.
All right, I will open the public hearing on the consent agenda. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda? No. All right, I will then close the public hearing, and I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion Waterman,
second.
second. Remind me your last name, I completely
Brink.
forgot it. Brink,
Yeah.
thank you. Staff, please poll the commission.
Banks,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Minion,
Yes.
Waterman,
Yes.
Chair Maxwell.
Yes. Motion carries. This item is a final decision subject to appeal. If anyone would like to appeal, you must provide a written request to city staff within 10 days of this meeting. And next we'll skip over item 8 because we have nothing on the non-consent agenda. We'll move on to 9, other business, which is a presentation of the annual report for the Minnetonka Community Development Department. Ms. Wishnak, I believe you have this item.
Thank you, and thank you, commissioners. This is always a nice time of year to reflect back on some of the work that we have accomplished in the Community Development Department. You see kind of one part of our work, which is the planning-related work, zoning-related work, but there's a lot more going on, and I'd like to share a few things with you tonight. We have done this for the whole time I've been here, so 20 years. We've been doing this report. Did we do it before, Susan, when you were first here?
I don't recall that we did,
Okay.
no.
All right, so it's probably been the last 2 decades. So what's really nice about that was we have a lot of historical data, and we can look at trends of different issues and things that we're dealing with. And then also, I always think it's kind of a journal of what we've been doing in a certain year, or if we have to reflect back on something, it helps us do that. And then, of course, it highlights all of the work. In the planning division, especially, you had 91 planning applications that were reviewed, and that equated to 21 planning commission packets and 71 individual reports. So no wonder they're writing feverishly all the time. In addition to that, there's 21 council packets prepared, and that included 45 reports. And I always call this your fan club. You do have 1,300 people watching you in terms of your meeting packets, and these are people that actually have self-selected to get your packets, and when a new packet's posted, they get a push, and it says, hey, here's the Planning Commission packet, pay attention to whatever you signed up for. So that's kind of interesting, and we watched that over time. You also had, well, you had an apartment, the pretty large one in the middle, the Greco project. I think that you had a little bit more varied applications than you normally see. So we were dealing with apartment after apartment for a long time, and now you've had a little sprinkling of maybe some townhomes. We had the Mill Twin Homes project. You had some of the large subdivisions, some of those large properties that were still left in Minnetonka, particularly the ones along Plymouth Road were reviewed in the last year. And then there was a couple of commercial projects that you dealt with, the Wells Fargo, and then also the Mercedes-Benz, and that was the Sprinter van remodel on the north side of 394. Moving over to sustainability, we're not going to capture everything that sustainability does, and Matt, he does update you once in a while about what's happening and gives you kind of the update from his perspective as a commissioner, but we did have about 5 commission packets and then 24 reports. Now they don't have as many subscribers. We're trying to increase that. They only have 674 people following their packets, but the other interesting thing that just happened at their last meeting, they were having people share their sustainability efforts and tried to work through the awards for that, which is always a hard thing to do, select people for awards, but really good submissions. All of them were pretty interesting to read, and we'll be highlighting them at the city council and then in some of the city publications. So when you see that, know that that is the work of that commission. And the big one for last year was getting, the climate adaptation, action and adaptation plan adopted. The other thing they worked on really hard this year is the drop-off day, and really just making sure that there was another avenue for those items to be diverted into a place called Better Futures, and Better Futures reclaims all of the items, and we've actually used them before on a city project for demolition, and so we have good success there, and it's a great partnership with that company to hopefully reuse some of the materials we're getting at that special drop. And then of course the clothing swap, and now I'm going to forget the date it is this year. Do you remember?
I will look it up. It's in April. It's the Saturday after Earth Week.
It's the 26th.
Yes, correct.
It just came to me. Sorry, I just looked at the date. It's a Saturday. And so again, that event, if you don't know about it, it's just you bring any items you want to get rid of, or you want to maybe shop, but you don't have to bring things to shop. So it's either way. There's no money exchange, and there's 780 pounds of clothing that was diverted out of the landfill last year because of the effort. So I'm going to try it again, and I know that there's been conversations too about having a winter clothing swap as well to help with winter coats and things like that, things that are always needed in the community. Moving into housing and economic development, there were 5 EDAC packets, Economic Development Advisory Commission, if you don't know that acronym. There were 11 reports written, and then also that turned into 21 council packets and 25 individual reports for that. There's actually, this is Planning Commission packet, but it's the EDAC packet. I know what you meant, Susan. 1,089 subscribers on EDAC. So they are giving you a run for their money on the EDAC packet. I think a lot of people sign up for that because it does deal with financing of city funds and different things like tax increment financing, etc. Off to the right there, Mike and I are at the Business Council of the Wayzata Chamber of Commerce. We were presenting some information that day. That's actually been a really, really active group. They meet every quarter, and the city has the opportunity to show businesses kind of anything that the city's doing, but also any assistance that they need as business owners. It's a way to network and get information in front of them. Also in the housing and economic development area, we have been working on this Roland Road project, and I think you guys saw it on the subdivision side of things. Do they have to subdivide it or no?
Rezoning from R1 to R2.
That's right. So it was a rezoning that you saw, and this will move forward. They're actually moving toward closing with the city, so the city's selling them the lot, and then they will build a home, and that those two homes, twin homes, will sell for $290,000 each. So the affordability is built into the purchase price, and then there's ongoing covenants to ensure that affordability continues. If you didn't know, we track about 1,050 units of rental property for compliance. That doesn't mean we only have 1,050, but it's required that the city keep track of those 1,050. There's lots of tax credit projects as well as other HUD finance, that sort of thing going on in the community, so that doesn't reflect all of the affordability. It's just the things that we track internally. And then we also track about 127 ownership units. So this would be things like we have some affordable units in Cloud9, Deep Haven Cove, various parts of the city where there are required purchase prices for those homes. And then the rental registry, if you didn't know we were doing this, it's a requirement that now if you rent property in Minnetonka, you have to register with the city. And that is also if you, not just if you rent in a building, like in a multi-story building, but also if you rent your individual homes. So far we have 37 multi-unit buildings registered, which isn't high enough because we know we have 55. So there's some stragglers out there. And then we have 335 individual homes that are rented that have registered. To put that in perspective, you have about 15,000 single unit households in the city. So, in terms of helping business, there's about 104 hours of technical assistance that's been provided through the Open to Business program in the city. There were 7 clients, 3 were women, 4 were BIPOC owners, and 4 were what they term low wealth entrepreneurs. And so we love that program because it really helps small businesses figure out their way, especially if they're newer and have never operated a business before. But it also helps businesses maybe if they have some challenges or there's something going on that they need to have assistance with. On the other side of the screen, there's a program called Elevate, and that's with Hennepin County, and we partner with them too. A little bit different in terms of the services. There's actually 28 businesses that provide free technical advice, and in this past year they had 485 hours of technical assistance. So for instance, and I'm sharing this with you because I think if you know anybody or you run into somebody who has a business and maybe they ask you, hey, where do you go for taxes, or how do you deal with marketing, or things like that, they're asking you some business technical questions. This is a great program for them. Again, 25 hours of free advisory service from 28 different types of businesses. So that's a pretty popular program. And then also, if you hear of anybody who is having trouble with their business in terms of an emergency, we had a business just recently have some sewer issues and they needed quick fixes. They didn't have the cash on hand, and we were able to step in and help them. It isn't a lot of money, but it sure helps when you're in that need. The second part of that program is if you have a code problem. So there's a building code issue, or you can't comply with something the city's asked you or required of you. We were finding that happened, and it usually was a financial problem that they weren't able. It's not like they didn't want to comply, it's just they couldn't on their business plan, they hadn't accounted for that. So that's a 2% fixed interest loan up to $1,500 that you could get to correct some type of code issue. Moving into licensed facilities, this doesn't actually bop around too much. We do have a little bit more than last year. If you look at the bottom, it tells you the kind of licensed facility. So it's things like massage. We don't have any bowling alleys right now. Food vending, refuse haulers, pet shops, and body art. That's in the blue, the top. The public pools are in the brown, or yeah, can you help me? That would be great, thanks. Lodging is in green, and then you have the lighter green as special event food vendors. That's our food trucks. You can kind of see how that's changed over time. 2022 probably was our biggest year for that. And think about post-pandemic, that makes sense why people were using special event licensing. And then food facilities, by and large, is our largest category of licensing. And then we also license certain types of businesses. So think about dumpsters and portable containers. We also do pawn and precious metal and secondhand dealers. So for instance, when you go turn in your laptop to Best Buy, there is a procedure that they have to retain your device for 30 days and upload it to what is like a pawn shop database. And so the city monitors businesses who do that. That's called secondhand dealing. And that is something we look into. And then we have peddlers and solicitors. Ooh, look what's happening there. Lots of people knocking at people's doors. I always do this as a PSA. If you want to know who's soliciting in the city of Minnetonka, it is on our website. You can go right to the website. You can look at the kind of vehicle they're driving, who they're representing, what businesses are allowed, and personally who is allowed to do solicitation. If they don't have the ID badge from the city of Minnetonka, they're not approved. So if you ask someone to show them their ID and they don't produce one, they're not allowed to solicit. And in fact can receive a citation for doing so in the city. But it's been blowing up in recent times. So just understand that, and if you're one to be bothered by those solicitations, then you should put up your sign and or check their credentials if they approach you. And certainly if you find somebody who's not licensed, you need to let me know, and then we'll take care of it. On the side is all the different types of liquor licenses the city issues, and that's been pretty steady, maybe a little bit of decline this past year. And then we also do all the inspections that go along with those. And then we have on the right-hand side, I call these our nuisance complaints. It's things like long grass, garbage cans in your front yard. Put away your garbage cans, please, everybody. Just when the garbage is done being picked up, put them in your garage, otherwise we'll come out and visit. I'm trying to think what else is in there. What else do people complain about, Susan?
Debris in yards, trash in yards,
General upkeep
general
kinds
upkeep,
of things.
lighting, noise.
Yeah. I watched this one because I get a little concerned when I see it going higher. We did have a little bit of a intensity during COVID 2020 because people were home and everything was driving them, maybe a little over the edge. And then we had a little downturn, but now this past year we actually went back up. I think that should be 2023 and then moving into 2024. So I think we watch that because we're looking for, are we doing enough for prevention? Are we telling people? So sometimes you'll see in the newsletter, we'll write about upkeep and how to stay out of trouble with getting citations and things like that. So anywho, that's not the greatest part of my job, but or the people that do that. We have 4 people that do that. In building, we had 8,600 permits issued last year. Over 14,000 inspections were conducted. It actually is a higher number than this. It actually ended up, I looked at the year-end numbers the other day, it was 379 was a final number on construction, 379 million, which is great. If you ask me how much is that over the last 5 years, I'd say $1.4 billion of construction has happened in Minnetonka, which is an astounding number. To give you perspective, our overall assessed market value is $14 billion in the city. So pretty strong and heavy construction. As you know, as planning commissioners, you've seen it over the last few years. Let's see, this just breaks it down further, showing you what kind of permitting is causing, the intensity of that number. So the blue is obviously the biggest, which is the building number, but there's also mechanical and electrical and plumbing that causes permit construction value to be pretty high. So if you asked what were the biggest projects of last year, it's the Marlowe Apartments, that's the Gray Star project, Marsh Run obviously under construction, Great Greco, Kia's under construction, Stratasys. If you didn't know, they moved from Eden Prairie to Minnetonka into a former United Health Group building in Opus and really did an intense remodel. They're not quite done. They're still working on it, so there's things happening still today. Cargill also did a pretty big investment, as well as you saw that on the overhead, the Sears Auto or the Mercedes. This is always a little perplexing. We had 33 new houses last year, and the average permit value was $987,000. And yeah,
And
go
I
ahead.
just want to add
Yeah.
into that's the construction value that's put on the permit. That does not include land costs.
Correct. And I would add that it isn't necessarily the transactional value. So the transaction might even be higher than what you're seeing here. So add land costs and then additional costs for whatever. The other thing that you're seeing is the average size of the structure still is creeping up there. So 4 years ago, we had 4,600 and now we're at 5,400 as the average size. Again, take this with a grain of salt. It's only 33 structures. It's not the way of the world in Minnetonka. This isn't our biggest construction category. It's something we monitor, though, to see what's happening. But we know new construction will typically land in this general area. In terms of reinvestment, and this is what we, again, watch this for, how strong is our existing housing stock? Are people putting money back in their housing? Of course, the pandemic just, those numbers just went through the roof. Literally, you didn't catch my joke, okay? Come on, I need an audience here. Let's see, and then last year was just over the top with 75 million, and then 58 million in this last year. Again, very strong numbers. People are doing things to their home. And this is everything from an addition to a deck to maybe they're maintaining something, re-roofing. Re-roofing is in that number? Okay. And then this is always my favorite slide, all the different degrees people have in our department. We have 28 full-time staff. We also have part-time staff that come in and help when building inspections get rough and long wait times. So we hopefully supplant that. But and then people's certifications that they're required to have to do their jobs. And then, of course, all the different memberships and things that people participate on behalf of the city, or even things they do in their personal life to lift up the community that they live in. So pretty fun stuff. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Ms. Wojnak. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Waterman?
I do. Thank you for that presentation. It's so fun to see what's been happening in the city and some big dollars in there. I'm going to talk about something a little micro. If I recall, commercial yard signs are in the purview of the planning department in terms of like picking those up. Do
Oh,
you-
we love those.
First of all, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a popular thing, but whenever I see them out there, and then I usually see them disappear, and I just think that that's such an underrated value add for keeping the community looking good, because I could see a barrage of those appearing and just never going away. And I've lived in a community or been in communities where they're not taken care of. So that's the comment. The question is, do you have any statistics on how many of those have been collected, impounded?
I don't want to tell you.
Okay.
No, I don't keep the numbers on it. It is high, I'll have to tell you. We actually keep them here for a period of time in case somebody wants to claim them, but then they're fined if they want to take them back, and so usually people won't come back. And then we do recycle them, FYI. We do have a place at Hennepin County that takes them. But Yeah, what bothers me is it's like trash, right? If you don't take them when they're in the wrong places. I mean, there are some legal, let me be clear, there's legal places for them. And certain days of the week you can have temporary signs, but you can't put them on our property out here on Minnetonka Boulevard or, along the trail system and that's sometimes where you see, them located. But I worry about it just kind of like blowing away into a wetland or a water body or something like that. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons we try to pay attention to it. If you have issues, you have to call us. We don't necessarily know where all of the signs are in 28 square miles. So if there's a place that's bugging you, just let us know and we'll go pick them up if they're illegal, So,
Great, thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? Commissioner Henry?
Thanks, Chair. Not so much a question, but a statement where the Sustainability Commission's only been in existence for about 4 years, and our rate of increase of subscribers is far outpaced all the other commissions in the last 4 years. So we're going to get there. So we may be small, but we're growing.
I don't think it's been that long, Commissioner Henry. It's been like 2 years that's formal, right?
Oh,
Or
that
2.5.
it seems longer than that.
Does it seem longer than that?
That's right. Wow. Okay. Well, then we have so
Well,
much
see,
more.
you have so much more time.
Yes, that's
All
right.
We'll give you
Commissioner Hansen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. It's always good to reflect, and I honestly think that, like as a planning commission, as I reflect on, I'm about to leave here eventually, like getting a binder like that as a walk-in pre-read material would be great for all planning commissioners, so that annoying people like me in particular wouldn't keep asking you what's going on. And then, to me, the one item that kind of stuck out annoyingly is like single family homes, 33 built last year. I keep getting sold a bill of goods that says, oh, this is going to address the housing issue in Minnetonka. And I just have other thoughts that involve a certain number of letters that I think about that. So I think having this as a present form would be helpful. Anecdotally, I feel like we're off to a pretty slow start in terms of 2025, and I'm sure there's seasonal sloping to when these things happen, but just as I reflect, I do feel like the last 6 months is probably financing has gotten in particularly tougher for people who are off to a slower start. Here's my question. What are we not doing? Where would you like to see the city go from a development perspective? And
Commissioner, if I may, I think that you always ask hard questions, Ally. I don't know. I mean, that's a loaded question.
I push you.
I know you do, and I love it. I think in our strategic profile, you'll see that we want to spend more time with large corporations. That's one of the ideas that the council has, to be more emphatic about monitoring what's going on the big side. A lot of times we spend a lot of our energy helping small businesses, and you can see that in the Open to Business program, the Elevate. But we kind of say, oh, large corporation. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. You can go ahead.
That's good for us to hear. And I think about where the city of, this is not meant to be any sort of political comment. There's a building sold downtown for $6 million that 4 years ago sold for $197 million. That is a tremendous issue. And so, frankly, United Health Group has relocated their headquarters. Again, I don't think that's a huge issue for the city right now, but sometimes the 80-20 rule probably needs to apply. And so I think that's where, what are we doing here, and how do we help the city from a long-term perspective versus 33 homeowners out to get a 5,000 square foot home?
Right. Yeah, and I would say, again, on the strategic profile, that is where we're spending our time, and that's where the council would like to prioritize. I also think it's of interest to you if you want to read it. In the last EDAC packet, there was quite a good bulk of information, not only about business appetite in the city. How are they feeling? How much positivity or not is there? You'll actually find that pretty interesting because there's a lot of positivity in their view of the environment of business in Minnetonka and also the stability of business. So, and that captured not only small businesses, but medium and large businesses. So I would encourage you to read that if you want to kind of dive into that. The second part of the information for EDAC was a commercial market analysis because of some of the vacancy that Commissioner Hanson is referring to. And what is interesting about that is that we do have about 8 million square feet of office space in the city, and there is some big chunks. United Health Group, Boston Scientific, Opus later this year, trying to remember off the top of my head. Those are the big ones in my head. But and what should the city do and how active should we be and that sort of thing. That's kind of why we did the commercial market analysis. But I think what I would tell you from a city operation standpoint and from a taxation standpoint, that actually only makes up, office market only makes up 11% of the overall tax capacity in the city. And so it's not as if it's all of the city's health in terms of economics. So I always put that caveat in it because that's the magic about Minnetonka, because we are so diversified in terms of our tax base and the kind of uses we have. We don't have all of our uses stuck into one category. Probably the most interesting thing, if you look at some of the other cities and the vacancy that they're seeing in office, it is 3 times what Minnetonka has. So it is a phenomena that we have to watch, monitor, and then have a plan for.
Yeah, I'd say, I think about, we've talked about Ridgedale a lot, you and I, and the occupancy rate of Ridgedale, I think, is in the mid 90%.
98%.
Yeah, 97 was the number I had stuck in my
Yeah,
head.
2% vacant. It's insane. Yeah.
So I kind of get on my soapbox here to say, like, that's something that we should foster, and keeping our finger on the pulse here helps us have that diversity versus like sliding into a place where we're kind of in a weird spot and then you have to rebound for 15 or 20 years. And
Right.
so sorry to be a thorn in your side.
No, I think Chair and Commissioner Hanson, you might have to retire into the EDAC commission.
Defer you to my St. Louis Cardinals comment earlier.
Thank you. Good points. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Banks?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's great to see what other commissions and departments are doing within the city, other areas, and just to see the progress in those areas. I know we might get bullet points here and there, or we might hear something from fellow commissioner on the sustainability committee, but it's great to see that presentation. And if that is actually something that could be shared, it'd be great to kind of memorize some of those numbers. So in having discussions with, fellow neighbors or whatever, we can throw some facts at them about how great you guys are doing. So there's a lot of numbers that tend to trend up, and that sometimes is a good thing. One that I noticed that was trending up was the amount of reports for like nuisances for the food. And so my first question, do you have, I know you mentioned you track that to see what we could be doing better or doing different.
Preventative, yeah.
In tracking that, is there a trend that stands out why that would have went up over the last year?
Chair, if I may, Commissioner Banks, I think there's some of it that deals with people's where they're at in terms of their thinking in general. So just general happiness in the environment that they're in and that sort of thing does impact how often we're getting, I know it sounds psychological, but it does follow kind of the vibe of how people are feeling. Or intolerance for certain things to happen. And so I do see that trending upward. And that makes sense to me. It also says to me, and we run into this a lot, and this is particularly in our senior population, where people just aren't able to take care of their property like they used to. And that's hard because they're trying, but it's just not to the level maybe of their neighbor's expectation. And there could be some real problems. And so we have programs for that to help. But I do see it's general attitude. A lot of seniors still living in their same place that they've lived for 45 years. It's just they're not able to maintain their large lot. That's happening quite a bit more than it used to. Any other thoughts, Susan, about why this is creeping up?
I think that it would be interesting. I don't have any specific thoughts, commissioners, but I do think it would be interesting to go back and look at some of the numbers from a planning perspective and back to the signage. When there is a presidential election year, our phones ring off the wall about election signs, campaign signs. And so my guess is that some of this, it's every 4 years, going back time eternal, that people are upset about how many signs there are, where the signs are, the fact that their neighbor isn't agreeing with them politically and has signs and they don't. So
That's a good point. Yeah, that would be maybe a third reason. So.
Okay. And then the other thing, more of a comment, two other numbers I saw from 23 to 24, the number of new homes built. It looks like that increased, from the 25 to 33. But more impressively was the average price of the permit decreasing. And it kind of speaks to how, we're always talking about affordable housing and how we can make, housing more affordable. It's a really small step in terms of affordability, but it's at least, the average is going down, which is a good direction to go in to create that, affordability for some people in the city. So those are great things to see.
Commissioner, that's maybe a point. Maybe we'll have to do this differently next year. We might put the mean permit value, because I think it's like the reason why that was so off last year is because there was one really big permit and we're using average here. So maybe that we'll do that differently, just to give a better reflection of what the norm might be. So let me think about that.
Well, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Henry?
Thanks, Chair. I have one question and one comment. Julia mentioned about the lack of some seniors living in the city being able to maintain their yards. Has the city ever implemented or tried any kind of adopt a neighbor program to foster just some more interaction between neighbors, support within the community? I know a lot of people who love housework, or not housework, but yard work, and
Right.
I could see going over there helping people clean up their houses. So if we could have some kind of a city registry you could apply for, and then somebody could adopt them if necessary.
Chair and Commissioner Henry, interesting idea. I think most of the services that we see there are volunteers for the senior home program through the city. So the home program is something the senior center has operated. I don't remember a time it didn't operate. And so it's a sliding scale for services. So if there's an income issue, the maintenance is commensurate with their income. So there are services, not exactly how you talked about it, but there's a lot of volunteers that give their time to senior home program so that the seniors can have an affordable option for the maintenance. But I kind of like your idea better because it's free. So,
Well, you have a
interesting.
lot of volunteer programs about eradicating buckthorn or garlic mustard, and this way, if we can make a
Have a
direct
neighbor matching, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, if we can have a
Interesting.
direct impact on people's well-being and keep them in their homes longer, it could be a good thing too.
Great point. Thank you.
And then one question I had while the slide deck is up, between 2023 and 2024, the total amount that was spent on home rebuilds, that amount went, like you said, there was a banner year in 2020.
reinvestment.
Thank you. So in 2023, I had over 75 million. And now in 2024, it was only 58 million, but the number of permits significantly was smaller in 2023, yet the number was significantly higher. So does the city have any hypotheses as to why those numbers are the way they are?
Yeah, typically, you're seeing a pretty significant addition in some of those numbers. So I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. The one on Highway 7 is a really good example. So it was an existing house. Do you remember you just looked at it? And so that would be considered an addition, not a new construction. So there is pretty significant value. So that could throw off, kind of the norm, if you will, if you had a couple of really large additions.
And I would just add, we also saw a skyrocket last year in the number of swimming pools that were installed.
Oh, right.
And that
Right.
would be in this also. So yes, there were a lot of large additions and swimming pools. And this takes into account also like the finishing and things like that in those additions. So
So the swimming pools, large additions in 2023 or in?
correct.
Okay.
In 2023. So fewer permits, but they were for larger things.
Projects, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments? Commissioner Minion?
I piggyback on the people who are less able to take care of their properties. Monday, we had a group of the tree stewards meet, and we had a wonderful problem in that the scope of trees we had selected to prune that day, we had far more volunteers than we had trees to prune. That was a wonderful thing. But one of the things that the tree stewards are doing is when people participate in the tree sale, which is a great program, thank you for doing that, we're actually helping people who are less able kind of get out there and plant some of those trees. And just kind of a shout out to that group, and thank you for the work that they do. Thank you to the city for doing all that put together, but this is an opportunity to help people who maybe don't have the ability to go out and plant their trees. It's a resource for the city, and there's a number of people who would really enjoy helping out that way. So just a direction to go.
Other comments or questions?
Oh, just that if I could piggyback on that one too, maybe we could have those volunteers help out clean up the yards too.
No, that's what I'm kind of getting at, is there's a large number of people who want to participate in the community and help others. And maybe we could use the website, or we've got such a great creative staff that just kind of throwing the seed out there, if you will, to see if there isn't something we could kind of create and get going that way. But just a tip or a direction for people. It's there are a number of people here that want to help others, and kind of a fun program to see if we get something going.
I second Commissioner Minion's unofficial motion.
Thanks. Commissioner Brink?
Yeah, no questions. I just wanted to say thank you for this report. It's just so, the information is just really, really good. It's so broad, explaining everything that's going on in the city and how it all interrelates with us and other different commissions. So it's really good. Just I really value this. So thank you. Thank you for presenting.
Anything else before I jump in?
Oh, sorry, one more thing. Is this something,
Commissioner Henry?
could you email this to us in our city accounts in PDF form so we don't?
It is
can't
in
make
the
one.
packet.
It is not actually.
Oh, you didn't
No,
have
I
it in the
didn't have
packet.
it in the
Okay.
packet. Yeah, I certainly can do that.
Thank you.
Can you also do the PowerPoint itself? That is more streamlined, I think, the summary pages that we have here. So we'll do both.
Sure, thanks.
And then also, I'm going to do one more announcement. Can you maybe think about over the next month where you want to go in the annual tour so that we can start planning locations? I know one thing I heard last year is to go back to an apartment, but to go to a naturally occurring apartment, right? Naturally occurring affordable apartment, yeah.
That's a great idea, and I'd like to go see that apartment that was the movie theater in Hopkins, because I want to talk about how close that is to the road and how that's okay.
Okay, all right. We can try to get over there. That's a great suggestion. So yeah, if you have any, just start thinking about it. We probably will start planning it in May, but over April, maybe you could consider where you want to go. For the new commissioner, we go on a bus tour is it in July this year? We're in July, and then we do Planning Commission, Economic Development Commission, the City Council, and then if we have room, we allow other commissioners to come. So, yeah.
I'd love to go see Marshawn 2, the Kia dealership, and also revisit Opus 2.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from the commission? All right, the thing that, for me, that really stuck out in this presentation was 14,000 inspections in the year that your department did, that's astounding. Like, what, 40, 50 a day at least to get that done, so thank you for that. And then I had one question that I think I know the answer to, but I'd like to hear you talk about it, is we talked about the nuisance requests. And I would have thought that would go to the police department. Could you talk a little bit about when you respond versus when police respond? I think for general citizens who are calling to complain, it would be helpful for them to know who's going to show up and who to talk to.
Yep, that's good. We'll make it a public service announcement for folks. Generally, so if somebody's complaining about general property upkeep, I'm going to use a broad category. That's the community development department. That's if you're calling on the phone, that it'll come right through to community development staff, and then there will be someone who investigates the complaint and then takes care of it from there. An easier way, which Susan is all prompted to show you, is the report a problem feature, and then you're able to go in and make a service request. And this is anything from potholes to property upkeep and what have you. You don't need to know what department takes care of it. You don't need to know the person's name. This system automatically tells the right person. So this is actually, if you're sophisticated on the computer and can do this on your own, that's great. If not, we'll take your phone calls. It's no big deal. What we end up doing, though, is entering it into the database that sits behind here so that we can track, and that's how you get the numbers that you see. So for instance, you know, if you have brush and tree trimming issues, like you can't see around a sign, well, you would press that first button, it automatically goes to Public Works, and it creates a work order for them to clean up that intersection. If you have an issue with a food establishment, that's going to come to our inspectors that do food inspections in community development. If it's noisy, now this is where it gets a little sticky, okay? So you have a neighbor who constantly plays loud music. Probably want to just call the police department and take care of it in the moment. If you have a business that's next to you and it's just really loud, that might need further investigation, and that typically will come to Susan or I. We seem to be the noise experts around here. But we'll monitor and we'll figure out how to deal with whatever noise is emanating from the business. And so those are trickier ones. The other thing that we do is sometimes the police and community development have to go out, and this would be a situation where there might be somebody in need. So maybe there's a challenge with caregiving for the property, but it might be coupled with some other issue that's going on. Maybe there's a family dynamic or something. So then we'll go out together. So we make those choices and we deal with that, but the biggest thing is you have to call. And I noticed in the community survey that only, I think it was last year, 50, 40, high 40s. Only 40-some% of the people actually report things that they are irritated by. So there's not a lot of people, there's a majority of the people that don't report things. So that's kind of interesting to me. I think they just don't want to bother us or whatever, but that's why we're here, to help take care of problems. So I would highly recommend using this. If not, call the main desk and we will get the right people on it. So thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this thorough overview into what the community development department does. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our last agenda item for today, which is item 10, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
Motion Hanson,
I'll second the motion.
second Henry. Do you need to poll, or we can say aye?
Aye.
All who agree say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.